Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. Today we're going to talk about hospice and community care. What services are provided, give you resources and information. And with us right now, Amy Lewis, Director of Philanthropy, right?
That's right, Diane. Thank you so much for having me
So
today.
glad you're here. So what does that really mean? What do you do, Amy?
So I'm the Director of Philanthropy, and that just means that I oversee all of our fundraising efforts to support hospice and community care, because we're a nonprofit organization and offer care to anybody, regardless of their ability to pay or if they're insured or uninsured or underinsured.
Exactly. And that's what I think is amazing. People sometimes don't realize it is open to everybody, regardless of all of these other factors.
Yeah.
And the services that you offer are palliative care, hospice care, bereavement services. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
All
those
right.
are some difficult things. We talk a little bit about palliative care. That's sort of that anybody can receive palliative care. So we have patients that have received palliative care maybe while they're going through an aggressive treatment, and then they're not going through the aggressive treatment, they're not having extreme pain or extreme symptoms, and we don't see them again. Their prognosis isn't terminal. So we do offer that service to anybody in our community who needs our support.
So palliative care really means what?
Palliative care means pain and symptom management.
Okay.
So anybody could receive that. It doesn't mean that you're going to be in a hospice program, but it also doesn't mean you're not going to be in a hospice program.
Right.
So many of our palliative care patients, that's where they start, and we sort of follow them through to the end of life when they're enrolled in hospice.
Okay. I think sometimes the transition and the difference between can be a little confusing to people. So
Absolutely.
I thought, let's just talk about this,
Yes.
right? So it can be provided to adults, you were saying. There's also palliative care and hospice care for children.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to have those services, but it's so fortunate that we're able to serve those families in a time of need. This is often children who were born with chronic conditions, whose families are living in the hospital. Think about this, and I'm sure you've known many families over the years of maybe one parent has to stop working and they're living in the hospital with their child who has a chronic condition. Palliative care offers them the opportunity to just be at home, be a family, and really turn that caregiving over to our palliative care team, and maybe eventually there'll be a need for hospice in the future.
Yeah. It allows the family to have some sort of normal life then, doesn't it?
To just be a family again. It's so hard to work, to be a mom, to be a dad, to be a professional, to be a caregiver, to be a nurse, when you're not trained for those things. So you're grieving when somebody has a terminal illness. You have emotions for yourself, you have emotions for your children, you have emotions for the patient, and it allows you to just take one thing off your plate, which is often such a blessing.
Yeah, and it really is for everybody involved, because when it's happening to one person, it's essentially happening to the whole family.
It absolutely is.
And extended family.
And extended family. And that's a concept about hospice that a lot of people don't think of. When you think about hospice care, where this is end of life care, that could be months, that could be weeks, that could be days. But when we think about hospice, the reason we ask people to try to come to us as early as they can in their diagnosis is not about losing hope or giving up, or that the doctors can't do anything for you. We can make you comfortable. We can really increase the quality of your life. We can make patients feel better. But more than that, we are a support for the family.
Yeah.
And that is so needed in these really crisis situations.
Yeah. And hospice care, just having recently gone through this with a parent and used hospice and community care when the staff was just amazing. It gave us a security and a voice of reason, and because we had to navigate so many different things that we had never done before, it really made our life just a little bit easier.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm so sorry that you have to go through that. But again, it's one of those services that, thank goodness, it's there for our community, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be a comfort, a lessen of a burden. And this is really good for our healthcare system as a whole. In often situations where people delay going into hospice, what we find is they're being admitted to the emergency room time after time after time. That's taxing and stressful and not great for the patient. And not great for the family.
Yeah.
If we can provide, like you said, a resource, a lifeline where
Yes.
people can call and talk to a nurse or talk to a physician or have someone visit their home, we can avoid some of those costly
Yeah.
hospitalizations, and the patient gets to remain in their home where they most likely
Yeah.
want to be and be comfortable.
So really, hospice care can be provided in their home. It can also be in one of the facilities,
Absolutely. We have an inpatient center at Mount Joy.
Mount Joy. It can also be in a nursing home, skilled care and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, right?
It could be in a nursing home, and then we also offer hospice in the hospital too.
Okay.
So if we have a patient that is in the hospital, often if they come in through the emergency room or through the ICU and they're too fragile to be moved, but end of life is imminent, they can call in the hospice team, and they're not going to change that prognosis for the patient, but they can kind of surround the family and be an added layer of support in a hospital, which is also often very confusing and loud and not the peaceful, blessed final moments that you want with your family. So we do offer that service as well in the hospital.
So it's wherever you are.
Wherever you are, we come to you.
And what I've found is that hospice staff is that great liaison between all those other people that are involved.
Yeah.
Medical and otherwise as well.
Yeah, we work with your existing team of physicians. So just because you're enrolling in hospice doesn't mean that you can't still work with your cardiologist or your oncologist or other physician or your primary care physician.
Yeah.
If you're working and have a close relationship with those, we can just facilitate that. So when there's a hesitancy maybe to order a medication or some medical equipment that's needed, we can just be the facilitators and make that smooth and make sure everybody is on the same page. Because I think that's something not just hospice patients, all patients run into is the left hand doesn't seem to be talking to the right hand.
Right, exactly.
And we can help facilitate that process.
What I found too is that the staff is so knowledgeable that they were willing to answer and try to address any question that we had. And if they didn't know right, they went to another source to get the answer.
Yeah.
And that was what was really helpful as well.
Absolutely. That is, our staff are angels, I think.
They are.
I think they're some very special people who
Yeah.
do this kind of work, and they really. I talked to a staff member one time about feeling burned out. How do you do this? How do you lose client
Yes.
after client and build these relationships with families? And they really said that they talk about celebrating end of life the same way that people celebrate birthdays. That these are humans who've had successes and failures and families and
Yeah.
amazing things happen, and they really look at end-of-life care as sort of facilitating that. What do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah. There's a journey with all of this.
Absolutely.
And then having hospice staff along with you really does make it easier. I mean, that's the only word that I can add onto this, because they help give perspective on things with the confusion that we may be going through, which, obviously can be really pretty daunting. Yeah.
Think about this. How many times have you watched somebody die? That's really a rare
Right.
occasion in people's lives.
Yeah.
It only happens to,
Yeah.
we're often only there for those that are very, very close to us.
Yeah.
And it's just a few times in our lifetime. And these are the expert medical professionals
Yeah.
who know what to look for.
Yes.
And know what the signs are and
Yes.
understand that you're grieving even while people are living with a terminal illness. So they are that
Yeah.
extra layer of support and the expert to kind of hold your hand.
Absolutely.
Through this
You have
process.
a website too, don't you?
We
What
do.
is that?
It's www.hospicecommunity.org.
.org. Okay, that's great. What are we going to find on there, Amy?
You're going to find information about all the services that we offer, from palliative care to hospice care, to our palliative care for our Sunflower program, which is our pediatric program. You're going to find information about our bereavement services, which is facilitated through our Pathway Center for Grief and Loss. That's a kind of a hidden gem of the community, and something that is free to anybody in the community who's grieving, even if your loss did not occur through hospice. A lot of people don't know that. So we offer groups like overdose loss, sudden death, suicide loss.
Yeah.
We offer services for children, adults, teens, family services,
Yeah.
pet loss, and anything in between. And those are all provided free of charge thanks to the generosity of the community.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So it's Pathway Center for Grief and Loss, and we are going to talk about that in more detail right after this, so stay with us.
You're watching Lancaster Community TV, LCTV 66.
Welcome back to Behind the Lines. We're talking about hospice and community care with Amy Lewis. And Amy, we want to talk more about Pathway Center for Grief and Loss. And we touched on it briefly in the first episode, but there's a lot that we need to know that you offer that's just amazing. There are choices, correct?
Yeah, grieving people have all kinds of choices. So at the Pathway Center for Grief and Loss, this is for anybody who's experienced a loss and is grieving actively, whether that loss occurred through hospice, that loss occurred through suicide, sudden loss, overdose. It can be for children, teens, adults. And the choices that you get as a grieving person is we understand that a support group's not for everybody. So we also offer one-on-one counseling. We'll offer counseling in your home. You can come to the Pathway Center for Grief and Loss in Mount Joy. We can do a session over Zoom. You can bring the whole family. We offer counseling for that, or counseling, like I said, just for teens, just for adults. Maybe it's a loss of a spouse. We have groups that are just specific to that, with only people who've also lost a spouse or a child or a parent. So we offer lots of options for people because everybody's grief journey is different.
Wow. So how does it start? What's the process? What do you do?
You can just go on to hospicecommunity.org. You'll see an option for our Pathway Center for Grief and Loss. You can see what services are going to be available in terms of groups that are available. And again, those range from everything within hospice to everything outside of hospice, and lots of options in between. You can also call us or email us anytime, and that contact information is also on our website. And you can schedule a one-on-one appointment. You'll have a master's level bereavement counselor really talk to you about what it is that you're seeking. How are you grieving? What are your struggles? Are they today? Are they long-term? And we also work with all of our community partners as well. So if it's something that maybe needs some long-term attention, we're certainly open to helping you make those connections to get the help that people need.
So you help navigate.
We help navigate and provide those upfront counseling services.
On that journey, however long it takes.
Because
there are other therapies too, right?
There are. Often at the Pathway Center for Grief and Loss, we see people not usually 2 weeks after their loss. It's oftentimes about a year after their loss, and they come to us and they say things like, I thought I would be better now, and I'm not. Or, I'm better most of the time, and these things keep happening, and then I'm don't know what to do, or I'm really lost in my grief. So that's often kind of where we find people where they say, is there something abnormal happening in my journey, or I'm feeling different than I felt before, and I need some extra support.
Wow.
I know, it's deep, it's
and
big.
Like you said, this is it's for anybody, and it's free of charge?
It is free of charge. As a nonprofit organization, which Hospice and Community Care is, all services offered through the Pathway Center for Grief and Loss are offered free of charge. And you also don't have to have insurance, so we don't bill insurance for any of our services. So please don't let that be a barrier if you have a loss. We also provide a lot of community support too. One of the local high schools here in Lancaster, if you remember, had a terrible accident several years ago, and our counselors will went into the school and provided some in-service for the faculty and staff of the school district to help recognize what does deep grief look like, and what are the signs of suicide that eventually did take place through the school. So how can we offer a train the trainer sort of model to our community? So we do that in schools, in businesses. We've had some businesses where an employee has been killed on the job. Other employees may have seen this, and there's some services that their company wants to be able to offer them, and we can do that, and again, that is free of charge.
Wow.
thanks to our community support, of course.
I mean, what you do for the community is just amazing, and thank you for being there. One of the programs we talked briefly about, but didn't get into a whole lot of detail, was the Sunflower Pediatric Program.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so pivoting from the grief, we offer a pediatric program. So this is for, it's not just for children 18 and under. So we have some patients, often our Sunflower pediatric patients are people who've had a long illness or a chronic illness, or they were born with a birth defect, or born with a congenital abnormality that will shorten their lifespan. So, for instance, we've seen some children who are in their 20s, who are 21, 22, 23, but we were also with them when they were 16 and had cancer and were diagnosed with cancer for the first time. So we've been able to sort of follow them through that journey, and we have some families who are looking to remove themselves from the hospital, not remove themselves from the kind of care that they get at the hospital, but physically not living at a hospital. And a service like the Sunflower Pediatric Program helps to bring those families home where they can be a family again.
All right. Well, one thing that we want to definitely make sure people understand, there might be confusion with hospice organizations within the community. And you were saying, how many are there in the community?
There are about 27 just in Lancaster County.
Wow. But hospice and community care is the only one that is a nonprofit.
That's correct.
So therefore, there are fundraisers and there's a need to raise money. And one of the biggest, and I think it is so much fun to go to, is over Labor Day.
That's right.
And it's the auction.
Hospice Labor Day auction.
And it's Saturday and Monday each year.
That's right. Labor Day weekend, Saturday and Monday. And right now we're holding that at the Solanco Fairgrounds in Quarryville.
Okay, and this is 2024, by the way. So there's always some really cool items, and that's why you might be wondering what's on the set. And we're showing you just some of the items that you can find. I mean, there's great artwork, there's sports memorabilia. What else do we have?
We offer used cars. We have a great selection, hundreds of quilts. We have a fine art show, so we have lots of local artists like Sook Shugley and Art Harrington, Julia Swartz, who've donated some original pieces of artwork, have some great photography. We have the sports memorabilia. We raffle off a 2024 Chevy Trax. So if you're in the market for a new car, you can certainly visit us and get your raffle ticket. We have used items. So we have an area that's more like a yard sale type area that features dishes and luggage and, you know, home decor and all of those things that we have. We have a wonderful tool auction with snow blowers, hand tools, gardening tools, and everything in between. We sell sheds and outdoor furniture. Fabulous plant sale. Come and get your mums and your fall ferns and everything that you're going to need to clean up your garden here at the end of summer. We also have a furniture auction. We have one of the items that I think is the most special, though, is our Day of Care auction. So a lot of people it's a little out of fashion to auction, mostly because we all have so much stuff. We all have so many things. So if you want to come out and visit us, this is an opportunity to not bring something home with you, but still make a real difference for hospice. So the Day of Care auction, you can actually purchase a day of care for a hospice patient and family.
Wow, that's great.
You can do a day, 5 days, a week, a month, and everything in between. And last year we were able to raise about $96,000 just from Day of Care sponsorships alone.
And I know you have some great jewelry. In fact, Bernie from Park Hill Jewelry always has some amazing items that he puts up for auction too.
Bernie's been wonderful to us for a long time. We have some beautiful necklaces, rings, a great quartz bracelet that's so beautiful. We have vacation packages, a home in Palm Springs, condo in Ocean City, Maryland for 9 days, solo stoves. Really, if you're looking for an item, you can probably find it at the Hospice Labor Day auction.
Well, here's the thing, too, that people might not realize, that you take items from the community.
Absolutely.
From everybody and anybody. And how do they go about doing that if they have something?
We take donations year-round for the hospice auction, whether that's a gently used item or a new item, or in the case of sports memorabilia, a collector's item
Right.
that somebody might have interest in. So at any time you can visit our website, hospicecommunity.org. There's some contact information for the
Yeah.
Labor Day auction on there. Just call us and we'll schedule a time to maybe pick up an item, to have an item delivered to the fairgrounds where we store
Okay.
our items. But all year long, gift baskets, gift cards,
Yes.
and everything in between. We'd love to be able to be a support to the community in that way, and the auction helps us raise those critical funds to
Yeah.
make sure that we can do what we do for our patients and
Yeah.
families.
And you make all the difference in our community with what you offer to
Thank you.
everybody in all these different levels. So thank you so much for coming on today, giving us resources and information where we need to go when we need these services.
Oh, thank you for having me, Diane. It's a pleasure.
And this auction always supported that Labor Day weekend, Saturday and Monday.
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for joining today, too. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, reminding you to look behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.